In your study, you found that one of the pull factors of the pickup artist community was to address the issues of loneliness and isolation. How far did you see this achieved by the participants in the study or beyond the study?
Yeah, I think I need to give a bit of context. So we all talk about loneliness and isolation, but nobody really defines it or talks about what it is in reality. And over the last 50 years, and especially in the last 20 years, and especially since the pandemic, there's been an acceleration of factors which have contributed to an increase in loneliness and isolation in our and this is completely measurable. So if we think of things like family formation, there's been an increase in divorce. Families tend to be smaller, people have fewer siblings. Immigration is higher, which means people who are immigrants to Canada, they often, their grandparents, their uncles, their aunts are in the country that they left, so they don't have an extended family here. We know people are less religious, so they're less likely to go to a place of worship, which is a place where people make friends, meet romantic partners, etc. So when you put all these variables together, there's an increase in kind of loneliness and isolation across the whole of society. And for young men, I think it's been particularly difficult, especially at the time when I did the study, because that was a time when the Me Too movement was at its height. There was a lot of discourse on my university campus, but in society at least, talking about things like patriarchy, toxic masculinity, rape culture. You know, these to me, these are pseudoscientific concepts. They're not real academic concepts. But they created an atmosphere where, for a lot of young men, it was quite unpleasant. And I know young men now in their 20s who, once they finish their bachelor's degree, refuse to do a master's or PhD because they didn't want to be in that micro environment where they felt they were being attacked just for virtue of being a man. And that also contributes towards loneliness and isolation because people are suspicious of each other. If you're someone who's friendly and wants to have a conversation with a stranger or someone in a class, you're worried that that might be taken the wrong way. So we need to contextualize all of this in those wider variables. And the answer to your question is that many of the men who participated in our study, they did say to us one of the main reasons is that they felt lonely, they felt isolated, they wanted to learn social skills that would help them address their loneliness and isolation. And it's very important to say that just through chance, 50% of the people who participated in our research were immigrants. And the immigrants had a very interesting perspective. Many of them came from North Africa, the Middle East, some from Africa, some from South America. And they said in their countries of origin, the script in terms of how to be social was very different to the script in Canada. That people had bigger families, that it's a bit of a stereotype, but some of these countries, the weather's nicer, there's more of an outdoor culture, it's kind of more normal to talk to strangers. Whereas in Canada, they found themselves lacking that cultural knowledge and were unsure exactly how to start a conversation, how it would be perceived. So for the immigrants in particular, they felt really lacking. And I had a friend in the community, and I used to say to him as a joke that this is like an immigrant integration service, what these guys are delivering to these young men. They're really helping them adapt to life in Canada and the realities uh, of what life is like here. Loneliness, isolation was certainly a big motivator for people joining the community in our study.
Interesting. So I'm fascinated by the part where you said about people coming from other cultures. So I'm in South America right now. I'm specifically in Lima, Peru. And what I lived
Mhm.
here two times before. This is my third time, third segment living here. I've been thinking the last 2 weeks, perhaps, exactly what you just said. The people are outside more is one of the observations I had. And of course, people are very talkative. Canada can be very social depending on which part you're at. But here in Peru, it's like I think of it being back in the 90s. That's how I keep describing it to people. Not only in terms of technology, but um, it's just how things are. Everyone goes out somewhere to eat. Um, People don't cook at home
Mhm.
so much, or at least not in the family context here. And as you said, the families are much bigger. I have seen more of my wife's cousins in the last 2 weeks than I have of my own cousins in the last 10 years. So
Wow.
huge family differences and many
Right.
things like that. So that was a very interesting observation there.
Well, I just wanted to say that the young men in our study were struggling. And I think that's something I should really emphasize. When they arrived in Canada, and also for many of the Canadian-born people who were isolated, some of them were bullied at school, some of them had issues with um, their family, their father, their stepfather, etc. And they were struggling really to integrate socially into society. And they've been kind of demonized in the media. I looked at some of the media reports at the time, and they were called, creeps and perverts, and that's not what I saw in the study. And the study, every study has limitations, and I know there are some things that did happen and do happen with these men, which in the community, which are unpleasant, encouraged. But uh, the base of the study was men who were struggling and saw that they had issues and wanted to improve their issues. So I always find it ironic that people would criticize the community without offering an alternative and without actually
Mm.
diagnosing the nature of the problem, which is there are a lot of young men out there who have these issues and no one's really addressing them. They're kind of a forgotten demographic when we look where money is going in research, in mental health, in services. There's not a lot out there for like young men 18 to 25 and particularly not young men, immigrant backgrounds who are in Canada. It's not so bad, but in some countries they're demonized even more as um, in the rhetoric of popular press, etc. So I feel it's important to say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely right there. Oh no, that really brings home a lot of points. I was thinking, yeah, there's this kind of judgment that is placed before, and to especially highlight where you said offering no alternatives. That's such a key point right there because while there is a lot of demonization, there's a reason people go into this.